Tom Keifer from Cinderella, and of course doing his solo stuff now, is on Radio Chatter today. We talk about what he's got going on in the future as far as his solo stuff is concerned, his life in Nashville, the fact that he's never sang karaoke. I find that hard to believe, living down there in Nashville, that he's never tried that out. His contribution to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, plus he picks the quintessential Cinderella album, and a ton more. Tom Keifer from Cinderella is on Radio Chatter today.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
This is Radio Chatter with WRIF's own Meltdown.
As far as I'm concerned, Cinderella is my favorite 80s rock band. To steal a line from my friend Kid Rock, if you strip away all the flash and flare and the big hair, Cinderella, at its core, is just a great straight-ahead rock band. And really, I mean, even Heartbreak Station, the slide guitar came, I mean, just some great stuff with Cinderella. Long Cold Winter, Gypsy Road, Shake Me, all those songs. Somebody Save Me, one of my favorites as well. Really cool stuff from those guys. Now, I recorded this interview last week, and since I recorded it, Tom posted on his Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff that he's had to cancel a couple shows. Apparently, the show he did in Columbus the past weekend kind of strained his voice. The doctor said to rest up the voice, don't sing. So he released this message, I think about 2 or 3 days after I talked to him. So we'll see what happens. He's supposed to play the Token Lounge coming up this coming Saturday, the 23rd of July in Westland, Michigan. Without further ado, it's Tom Keifer today on Radio Chatter as we got the conversation rolling with him.
Things are good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm super excited to talk to you. First of all, I've said this before that I mean, Cinderella is probably for me my favorite band of that era. I was growing up. I was in high school, and I just keep going back to it and going back to it. And I listened to it all weekend long. I even played some of it for my 14-year-old son. I said, "You got to hear some of this stuff."
Oh, cool. Well, thanks, brother.
Yeah, it's right.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I grew up in Buffalo, and I was thinking about this. The last time I actually talked to you was in Buffalo in the early 1990s, and I don't expect you to remember this, but it's the only time I was ever at the Anchor Bar in Buffalo where the chicken wing was invented, because we went and had dinner afterwards or something. So.
Oh, yeah. I love that place, man. I haven't been there in, God, it's been forever, but yeah, I wonder if I'm sure it's still there.
Yeah, I think it's still there somewhere, but that was the only time I was ever there, and I worked like 2 blocks away, and I think my boss at the time said, "Hey, do you want to go have wings with Cinderella at, after your interview?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." And so I went down there. And,
yeah. But I actually do remember that. It was in the afternoon.
Yeah, I was doing an afternoon drive, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
So, anyways, yeah, really cool stuff. But thanks for taking the time. You're coming back to town Saturday, July 23rd at the Token Lounge here in Detroit. I saw you last time at the Magic Bag, I think, out in Ferndale. That was a great show, man. I took us, some of my friends are big fans, and we all went together and saw that show. And if I remember correctly, I think you were a little bit under the weather that day, but you really couldn't tell by what you did on stage. I guess you probably have a whole routine backed up for when you don't feel all that great, eh?
Yeah, well, I've got to warm up, with the problem that I had with my voice starting in the 90s with that partial paralysis thing. I've got this whole warm-up routine that, knock on wood, gets me through most anything. Even on a normal day, I have to go through it. But I remember playing the Magic Bag. That was our first year out when my solo record had been released, and we were
right.
with the new band. And that was a fun night. And I believe we all had the flu or something that night. That was kind of early on when we first started touring together. And I remember that early in that tour, we were all kind of under the weather. So we caught some bug somewhere. But yeah, that was a fun night.
Yeah, I guess driving around in that bus is kind of like a radio station. It's like a petri dish. You're with everybody all the time, right?
Yeah, those buses are, they're crazy, man. You never know what's floating around in there.
Yeah, so that was in 2013, maybe even early 2014, if I remember correctly. The Way Life Goes had just come out. 10 years to make that record. It's been a while now. Are you working on any new stuff or what?
We've been out touring with the new band, and it's kind of, we started in smaller rooms like you just described, the Magic Bag, and as over the last few years, the band has really grown in popularity on the tour circuit out there, and now we're playing all the big festivals and fairs, and it's been kind kind of on the rise, if you will, and become a really accepted band out there on the tour circuit. So we've stayed out on the road, and there's been some writing going on in the meantime in the background in anticipation to a follow-up record to The Way Life Goes, which we want to get into the studio next year to make that record. And in the meantime, we have a deluxe edition of The Way Life Goes coming out this fall, and we've got some new tracks on there that we've recorded with the touring band. And there's a documentary on it that's there's a DVD that comes with it. It's a 2-disc set. So that'll be coming out, and the documentary is very cool. It's like a fly-on-the-wall look at us in the studio recording some of these new songs, and it's a cool thing and some really cool new artwork. So that's coming out in the interim, and we're going to continue touring through the end of this year, maybe a little into next year, and then the plan is to do a follow-up record to The Way Life Goes.
Now, this is kind of like, I guess, a hack question, if I can say so myself, but how has the writing process changed over all these years from Cinderella to your solo stuff and whatnot?
It's still the same thing. It comes from the same place, and that's, you just get this spark of an idea, which is usually some kind of lyrical a line, a chorus line, a title, some emotion that strikes you that you want to write about. And, that's how it always starts for me. It's that initial thought of what the song's about or what the emotion of the song is. And then you kind of take it from there, and as you're finishing or completing the song or writing the song from that thought, you kind of think, well, is this a heavy driving song? Is this more of a ballad? Depending on the emotion of that lyric idea. And then, you'll write it on whatever instrument feels appropriate. So that's how I've always written. And you get a good melody and lyric together, and then you plug around the heavy riffs if it's a rockin' song, or, you sit down on an acoustic or a piano if it's a ballad, and just kind of figure out the feel from that point, The writing on The Way Life Goes was, the same way. The songs were inspired the same way. I wrote with a lot of different writers on this record, which was really, really cool, because I've gotten to write with the best of the best, being here in Nashville. One of them being my wife Savannah, who's an incredible writer. So we co-wrote a lot of the songs, and also I wrote with some other folks here in town. And all the writers I wrote with on this record, they write from the same place. Starting with that lyric and melody and that thought and that emotion, because that's really the foundation of any song. And when I found when you start with that, or you start in that place, then you can break that song down to just anything, just sing it with no instrument, and it's still a song.
Yeah.
So that's what matters, is the lyric and what it's saying more than anything.
Now, how long have you been in Nashville?
I've been here since 97.
Okay, so you've been there for quite a while. Now, have you worked on any other projects besides your own while you've been there?
Well, not a whole lot. I've done a little bit of side writing here and there. One was with a singer, country singer, artist here named Mandy Griggs, which was pretty cool. That was something that I wasn't expecting. Savannah had been writing with him because she wrote a lot down on Music Row, and he asked if after they had written a couple times together, he asked if she thought if I would come and write with them together. So the three of us ended up in a room together, and he was looking for something along the lines of Dead Man's Road from Heartbreak Station. So I pulled out the National Steel and a slide and tuned it up to a real dark D-tuning, and the three of us sat in a room for a few hours and wrote a song called 100 Miles of Bad Road that ended up on Andy's record. Freedom was the name of the album. I think that came out around 2002, maybe. I'm really taxing my memory now. But so I worked on that, and I produced some tracks for Bo Bice when he was here in town. A few things on the side, but when I first moved to town, I was still touring with Cinderella, and then I started working on The Way Life Goes. and that was kind of on and off over, the course of 10 years. It wasn't made with a label involved. So we were really taking our time and experimenting and working on that every spare minute that we had. And I was on the road, and also I became a father during that time. So, it's been pretty busy. So I've been focused on, mainly those things, but a few things here and there have popped up.
Yeah, I would imagine that being in that music city like that you probably not only learn a lot about the craft of songwriting, but maybe even something about yourself, I suppose, while you're out there with all those musicians and everything.
Well, it's an inspiring city to live in for a musician and a songwriter, because the level of the talent of the musicians and the songwriters here is just off the charts. So hopefully some of that's rubbed off, and I've upped my game. That's what you always hope for when you're around people who inspire you musically. Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself popping into karaoke places like our friend Kid Rock does every once in a while?
I have never sang karaoke.
Really?
No, I never have. I don't know why. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I don't think I've ever even been in one,
Make that your goal this year, to hop into one of those karaoke bars.
I'll put it on my bucket list.
All right, you don't have to do that. I'm just kidding you. But I saw that movie. You were talking about your band and stuff, or your touring band and whatnot, and I saw Hired Gun a couple weeks ago that came out, and Kenny Aronoff was in it. You had a chance to work with him back in the day. Still Climbing, right? He played on some of the tracks on that, didn't he?
Yeah, and come to think of it, he actually played on that Andy Grieg song, 100 Miles of Bad Road.
Well, what song hasn't he played on in the last 20 years, really?
Well, yeah, there you go, right? I mean, he's an in-demand drummer, right? He plays with everybody.
Yeah.
He's an amazing musician and drummer. He's a guy that when he came in to work on Still Climbing, he was always up for doing another take and trying to improve what was there. Sometimes you work with people and they do a take or two, and it's just like, yeah, that's cool, right? And it's like, well, I think it can be better, and then they start arguing or whatever. Kenny was not. He just was always like, yeah, let's make this better. Let's do another take. I have another idea. Let's try this groove. Let's try, and that's a pleasure to work with, because, you got to dig deep to get something special. And that's how Kenny was, and it really was. I really loved working with him.
Now, are you going to do anything in the future with Lzzy Hale? Perhaps, I know you guys are friends. You guys have been on stage before in the past, and by the way, she's one of the nicest people in this business, as far as I'm concerned. But would there be a chance you guys would do anything in the future?
We just sang together again for, I don't know, maybe the fourth or fifth time we've done Nobody's Fool live at Rockfest, Kansas City a couple of weeks back, and. We cross paths on the road here and then, and here and there, and we jump up on the stage together and sing. And she's got an amazing talent. Not only her voice is just off the charts, but her guitar playing and writing ability is really just incredible. And as you said, one of the nicest people on the planet. So yes, I would love to continue singing with her, and I'm sure we will in the future. So we've always had a good time doing it together.
Last night I was at my house and I was listening to the latest Pretty Reckless album. Are you familiar with Taylor Momsen and Pretty Reckless?
Yes, I am.
And I thought,
very cool band. We actually did a show with them a couple of years back in Dallas, and I watched a bit of them, and I was familiar with some of their songs, and yeah, they're very, very hip.
Yeah, and I was thinking as I was listening to this, I'm like, man, Tom would just love this record. I mean, the Who You Selling For, their latest, it's real bluesy, soulful, it's rocking, it's like all of that stuff. So I was just curious if you've actually heard the new record. This came out last year, by the way.
No, I actually have not heard the new one. The previous one is the one that I'm familiar with, and it was one of those records that just kind of grabbed me, and the whole imagery that she portrays and all just reminds me of stuff that I grew up on. Just really cool vibe, cool music, and yeah, no, definitely one that caught my attention for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you say the stuff that you grew up on, because she, at the ripe old age of 23 or something, is telling me about all her influences before, and it's like the Beatles and Zeppelin and all this stuff. It's like all the stuff that you grew up on and I grew up on, and now she's grown up on it as well. So
yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell. You can tell listening to it.
Yeah. Now, you made a Hall of Fame donation last year. I saw this with I think the top hat and I think a guitar and a jacket and stuff like that. I mean, talk a little bit about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, if you were to ever be inducted into it.
Well, I mean, that would certainly be an honor, and, we'll just have to wait and see on that. That's not something that just happens for anybody, but it was certainly very cool to visit there and donate some stuff to put in their hard rock display. And, I did the double neck and the top hat that was kind of iconic to Night Songs live, because I always played that guitar and wore the top hat on that song when we played it live. So, I wanted to give them something that was very recognizable. And they also asked for two things, something from the Cinderella days and something that was very recognizable from the solo touring days. So the jacket that I gave them was one that I wore, I think, in 2015 that had an American flag on the back, and I wore it with a T-shirt that I had painted in like blood red. It's only rock and roll. And because we were covering that song in our encore that year with my solo band, so I gave them that. That was the new stuff, and the stuff from the past was the top hat and double neck. So it was really cool to be asked to give something, and something from both eras, if you will, was really cool. And they gave us a private tour of the vault, and we saw all kinds of cool stuff, and it was a fun day. And then we were off to our show at the Hard Rock there that night.
Yeah, it's cool. I took my daughter out there, I think, back in March or February or something. She had a hockey tournament in Pennsylvania, so we were kind of driving through, and I'm like, she's not much of a rock fan, but it's like, you want to expose your kids to that kind of stuff,
Absolutely. It's history.
Yeah, that's right. Now, how old are your kids?
I have one son. He's 13 years old, and he is a fireball of energy, and he plays lots of sports, and he keeps Savannah and I running. It
sounds like
and he loves music. He's a huge music fan.
Yeah, it sounds like your son and my son have a lot in common.
Yeah. And the sports definitely. He plays like 3 different sports, so I'm sure if your son does that, you're familiar with the schedule that goes on with that. He's busier than our tour schedule.
Oh yeah, I know. My son plays travel hockey and baseball and all this crap, and we spent the whole weekend watching him play baseball. But talking about your son and stuff like that, is he familiar with your past with Cinderella and stuff, or do you just let him discover it on his own?
No, he's very familiar with all that. He's heard all the music. He hears it every night when we play with my solo band, because we do lots of that stuff. So yeah, he's familiar with all of that.
Yeah. Now, if you could pick like the quintessential Cinderella album, or even your solo album, what would you pick?
I think they're all very different in the way they're produced. I think that the songwriting really came from the same place. So in terms of songs, I like them all in that sense. In terms of production, which is something that is a learning experience as you go, of the Cinderella stuff, I think Heartbreak Station is my favorite, because I just love how dry and how raw that record is. And we evolved into that sound, whereas the first 2 records were a little more flavor of the day, and the processing, it was, things were a little slicker and kind of processed in the 80s, and we evolved into this more organic, kind of dry, raw, real sound on Heartbreak Station. So of the Cinderella records, it would be that one, and we strived to mix The Way Life Goes, the solo record, in the same way, because I think learning from the Cinderella experience, I think at the end of the day, when things are very dry and kind of raw, you feel the emotion more of the music and the players. So, I took that experience and applied it to the solo record, and tried to keep that record really really honest and organic the way Heartbreak Station was. So it would come down to those two for me.
Now, talking about like Heartbreak Station and stuff, that came out in, I believe, 1990, if I'm not mistaken. So Cinderella, you had your 2 records previous out, and like you said, like kind of the first record was, an 80s rock band, and then I saw some growth in the second record. Then Heartbreak Station, like you said, it was like that was the time you guys started like kind of headlining bigger tours and whatnot. And then this grunge cannonball just drives down your street. Yeah.
Things were really kind of, heading in the right direction for us, if you will. Actually, we started headlining on Long Cold Winter. We did some support slots for AC/DC and Judas Priest, and then we went into a pretty big headline tour for that record, and then straight into another headline tour on Heartbreak Station. And at the same time that cannonball of as you just described, the whole music scene changed, and there was this, changing of the guard of, the new music and kind of out with the old and in with the new. At the same time that was going on, I was actually starting to experience those vocal problems with a partially paralyzed vocal cord right around the same time. So the 90s was, not a joyride for me for both those reasons, because, the career was on shaky ground as a result of the music scene changing, and at the same time my instrument had been taken away from me by a neurological condition that I was told there was no cure for, and that I would never sing again. So crazy time, and it's been really fighting and struggling to and crawling back ever since, particularly with the voice, trying to fix and that problem, which was a retraining process. It's taken years.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, man, I can't wait to see the show. That's July 23rd, which happens to be my daughter's 16th birthday. So I'll go do her birthday celebration that day, and then come out to the show. Yeah, I'll come out and check you out. She turns 16, so she'll probably be driving all day.
There you go. Yeah, that's a big milestone there.
Yeah, she actually bought her own car and everything, so she'll be doing whatever she does. But anyways, that's July 23rd. July 21st, a couple days before that, I just talked to Jeff Tate. He's playing, and of course, both of you guys, rose to popularity throughout the '80s. And I asked Jeff Tate what he thought about you, and I'll ask you what you think about like a singer like Jeff Tate.
Oh man, he's got incredible pipes. He's got just kind of control and cool tone. It's just killer, really great.
Now, were you a fan of Chris Cornell's?
Yes, I loved his voice.
Yeah, it was a sad loss when he.
Yeah, very, very, very sad. It's just tragic when something like that happens. And I definitely really loved his voice, and it just had that grit and growl, and again reminded me of stuff that I grew up on, like Robert Plant, and very cool, and definitely a very sad loss.
Yeah. Over the weekend, I saw Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan. I've never seen either one of those guys before. I couldn't understand anything Bob Dylan said. Nothing. It was like, it was kind of tough, actually, to be quite honest with you. But my friends wanted to go, and I'm like, all right, I'll go check this out. I didn't have to pay for a ticket, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I saw Dylan here years ago at River Stages, I think it's called, that they have, and he was great, man. His band was great. I think Charlie Sexton was playing guitar.
Yeah, he was playing guitar with them. Yeah, and I didn't realize.
Great show.
I didn't realize how much Bob Dylan played piano. Like, at least when I saw him the other night.
Yeah, he did a little bit the night that I saw him, but that's the only time I ever saw him. But I thought they were badass.
Yeah,
really great.
Well, Tom, man, I really appreciate the time. Can't wait to see you July 23rd at the Token, and man, it's going to be a great show.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Will be a big, loud, screaming rock and roll show with all your faves from the Cinderella days and stuff from The Way Life Goes, and we're looking forward to it.
And I guess I'll bring the wings or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Take a trip up to Buffalo and bring me some lunch.
Tom Keifer.